Hey, welcome back. Harry Brelsford here with Greg James, the publisher of Marijuana Venture Magazine. Greg, good to see you again.
You too, Harry.
Hold up that magazine.
There it is right there.
All right.
The nation's #1 leading business magazine for the cannabis industry.
Yep, the business side. I like that. And hey, before we get into the main topic, I also want to thank you for supporting us with the CannaTech Expo a couple months ago down in Fort Lauderdale. What we did, Greg, is we gave away the Best of CannaTech awards to some of the technology service providers, and it's not lost on me. Your logo is front and center.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Very happy to get it. And support you guys.
Well, I appreciate it. So we're really here to talk about Interchange, a 2-day format you have that goes to several states. What is Interchange?
Well, basically, Interchange is 2 days of, I like to say, sort of like speed dating for vendors who want to meet with retail buyers. So it's a business-only event. We hold the Washington one in Renton, which is a suburb of Seattle. We get about 50 Washington retailers who will send their buyers and the store owners. They have a private meeting space, and then vendors spend 2 days with these half-hour meetings where they get to meet with the buyers.
Yep. And don't the buyers get to sit in what would be the booth space, and the vendors have to walk around exactly the opposite of a normal show?
Yeah, it's different from a normal show. The buyers have their own space, and the vendors rotate around.
Yeah.
They have scheduled meetings, and they get to sit down and have, a 20, 25-minute meeting with that buyer, then a 5-minute break, then they're on to their next meeting. And the meetings happen every half hour.
Yeah, and do you literally ring the bell? Do you have some way for them to know the meeting time is up?
Well, we literally do have a bell. So, a meeting starts at 9 o'clock. Then it goes to like 9:25. We ring a bell, then they know there's a 5-minute break, and then at 9:30 we ring the bell again, and everybody sits down and has their next meeting.
Yeah, and I've been to Rad Expo down in Renton a few years ago, and
I mean Interchange.
Or Interchange, sorry, that blast from the past. Interchange down in Renton. And I liked it. It to your point, it was a business, not a lifestyle symposium or gathering. But you're starting to scale. So what's the thinking behind that? I saw an ad in Global Cannabis Times, and you had half a dozen cities listed. What's going on?
Well, we started in Washington 7 years ago. It proved to be very successful, and once people understood the format, they realized that it was a really great way to save time, and it makes their time much more efficient use of their time, so to speak. So then we expanded into Oregon. Now we're also doing one in Michigan. We've got one coming up hopefully in Montana. And so, the whole, it's catching on because, as you know, Harry, the industry really is a state-by-state industry. There's really not a national industry. And because each state has different rules and regs, it makes sense to have these in-state events for in-state professionals.
Well, more importantly, and I've had long talks with Randy Rowe behind the camera over there, we're hearing, and my personal preference is these targeted regional shows versus the monster national shows.
Yeah, I had a background in the CD-ROM business. I used to go to Comdex, and one of the things and you probably know this, right? Comdex was a huge computer show, but eventually it split apart because it didn't make sense to have everything under one big tent.
Right.
And because the states have different rules, and because growers versus retailers have different things they need and want, it makes sense to do these regional shows. Plus, each state, if you think about it, most of these states are at different stages.
Yeah.
Washington, Colorado, we've been at it for 7 years. You could almost call it a mature industry here, right? Whereas, Michigan's brand new. Illinois is fairly new. Montana's fairly new. So the different states have industries that are at different places in their evolution, and so they have different requirements and they want different types of shows.
Yeah, I heard it described as the state of Virginia went legal, good Lord, was that a year ago, like last July? It's been some time on paper. Now they're doing a slow rollout, but a college professor at the University of Virginia described it as kind of going backwards in time. He had taught at the University of Denver when they went legal, and then he goes to Virginia, and he says it's like rolling back a decade.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, and what's interesting, the other thing that's interesting, even the states that have been around for a while, like Massachusetts is a good example. I can't remember, they legalized weed 2 or 3 years after Washington and Colorado.
Yeah.
But it took them years to get any stores rolled out. So you had, and then you've got a state like Oklahoma, where they've got like 3,500 licenses, and anyone with $25 could get a license.
Yeah.
So the states have these wildly different businesses and rules and regulations, and so yeah, in our view, it makes sense to do these regional shows that are geared towards what that individual state's requirements and needs are.
Well, 2 final questions. One is, speaking of the East Coast, because we're hearing a lot of noise coming out of New Jersey and New York. Do you think you'll do an event on the East Coast?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are. Any state where it makes sense. Some states it doesn't really make sense yet if you're just completely vertically integrated, right?
Yeah.
Then. And there are a few states like that. It probably doesn't make sense for that type of show because they don't really want outside vendors. But for any state where it makes sense, I mean, yeah, we're actually talking about Massachusetts already. So
yeah, no, that'd be a good. Keep me posted. That'd be a good show. And then finally, you just had the show in Spokane. We're sitting here basically Labor Day weekend 2022. What's the next show coming up?
We have Portland, Oregon next month.
Okay.
I think middle of September. And then we have our big Washington show, which is November 8th and 9th in Renton.
Yep, that's the one I went to. All right, well, continued success, my man.
Thank you, Harry. Good to see you.
Yeah.